Hey guys, we want to talk about cut and fill and dealing with shaping topography to ensure that we can get a project situated in the right place on a block. So without further ado, just have a quick look. Now essentially what I have here is a terrain map which was created from contours, and you'll see that in my last video how to do that. And I have a face underneath here, and I have my topographical survey. Now there's an order to this, and there's a very quick tool inside of the sandbox that you can use. Now if I select my my face at the bottom and I click on this tool and then I click here, you'll notice that it automatically cut a face. And if I broke inside of this group, you'll notice I have two faces now, which is kind of really handy. If I got inside of here and I actually double clicked it, and I'll turn my mouse on just quickly, and I moved it, so move, double click, move, and control. I'm just going to keep that outside of there for a second. Right. There's some other things that I can do very easily. Is I could actually select this face and I could stamp it. Right. And now that enables me to cut and fill very quickly without a retaining wall. And there's some little tricks in here. So I'm just going to eyeball it to around about there, and you'll notice that now I actually have a cut and a fill, which would enable me to actually go and put in walls. So if I'm just going to quickly use a wall tool, and I'm going to go through and just put a retaining wall around here. So, and I'm just clicking roughly where the land slopes, so that way I can figure out my height and change the heights of my walls. Right. You can see those walls are too high, and if it was a taller block I could do it, so I could simply go and select these walls and reduce the height. A little tip, guys, is that in Australia a retaining wall over 900 millimeters must be engineered. There's a cost associated with it, so be careful of that. I can go through and change the height of my walls in one go here and just type in 500 and go submit, and I now have a cut. And if I was going to fill, I would do the same thing down at this area down here. Right. Let's not get too caught up. I think you get the idea. Move them down a touch. Right, on a steeper block we would have different issues, and you'll notice that this actually had, I'm going to undo that, Control Z, get back to where we were. Right, this block is swaled, it isn't a vertical cut, which means that all water is going to run down to here, and then if our slab was going to be in this area, let's say quickly put a slab here, the slab should be above the height of the grade. Right, thickness only, I'm going to make it above the face. Right, but we don't really want water going against our house, so what do we do in that situation? I'm just going to quickly delete that slab, and I'm going to simply double click the face that I created, and I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to click my up arrow, and you'll notice that the group was outside of the face was outside of the group, which meant that it didn't interact with the terrain. So if you have that issue, I'm going to go escape for a second. I'm going to go Control X, which is cut. I think it might be something different on a Mac, and I'm going to go edit paste in place. Right, now if I actually grab this face and push my up arrow, you'll notice that now what it's doing is it is sloping that block according to the offset that was chosen on the face. And I could do that in multiple ways. I could actually offset it twice, so offset F as a keyboard shortcut, or that would be this tool here. And I won't move again, push my up arrow. You'll notice that now I actually could situate my slab on top of an area. Right, therefore right click, slab, create slab. Right, and now my slab will be sitting on top of a sloping ground. Now there are minimum requirements in Australia. It's usually 2% that you need to slope away from the house from a certain amount of distance. All these things need to be taken into consideration when we're doing cut and fill. Once we do have our cut and fill at the correct height, my finished floor level, I would always, as you would have noticed in my last video, I would move that down until it sits at my 0, 0 point on my axis, which is there. That way when I use my scenes to create elevations, plans, sections, they'll all be in the right area. Right. Now, how do I go about quantifying the cut and fill on this? So I'm going to quickly just undo what I did there, because this would be controlled fill and we would probably import it. I could actually double click and copy this face out as well, and I could move it. I'm going to move it out, say, a distance I can remember on an axis. I'm going to say 40 meters. And therefore, if I actually made this a rectangular, a solid, there's a word for it, sorry guys, it's escaped me in the moment, right click, make group, and go up to entity info, you'll notice I have 4.1 cubic meters of fill there. And if I did want to quantify just this area, if I go in PlusDesignBuild and I go to my custom estimation tool, which was this one here, I can go down to cubic and it's going to filter everything by cubic measures. I'm going to quickly scroll down the bottom and I've got import compactable soil. So I selected that. I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to apply the product to one selected entity. Right? When I do a takeoff just of that by itself, takeoff selection only. Currently in my takeoff I have 4.16 cubic meters of fill. Now, one thing about when you import fill, a truck would usually carry 10 cubic meters of soil. However, it is a lot of air inside of it, so usually it's if it's clay, it's 2.5 times the quantity, and so in this case it's 4 times 2.1, 4.1 times, 2.5. I would need 10 cubic meters of soil there, imported. Now one thing guys is it's so much cheaper to import fill than it is to export it, because most of the time you can get compactable fill for free delivered to the site. It just means that you probably need to level it, and if you're getting a lot of it, you can probably negotiate with the excavation company to actually level it for you. The more fill you put in, the deeper you have to put a pier through it to get to solid ground, so there are costs associated with that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. Okay, so I've now quantified this. Now, the hard bit is actually to quantify all of this area here, right? And that's a bit of a problem. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go back over. I'm actually going to create these contours back into a contour file for myself. I'm going to go to here, create terrain, and I'm going to just quickly move this terrain out here so we can figure out how we would quantify the amount of cut and fill in there. Now, obviously, the height of the slab or the benching of the top of the benched area is up to you. You have to do what works best for solar aspect, for views, or anything else that's required. But I now have the same thing, and I'm going to quickly just move my face, move it over to the same location. Yeah. And what I want to do is I actually want to project this up to the face again. So I'm going to use my stamp tool again. My project to face. Right. I'm going to break inside the group, double click again. I'm going to move this a distance that I know, control. On a red axis, I'm going to say 15 meters. Enter. Right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to project my cut and my fill up to this level here. So I'm going to pull it, P, to that level. There. Right. And now I can actually intersect this with the model. And I'm going to pull the base up to the lowest section. Pull. There. Right. Now what I want to do is I just want to quantify the area of fill. Now I would have to retain it here. If I didn't want to retain it, I could simply move a batter on that if I wanted to, but I'm going to leave it at vertical. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to intersect it with this. Right click, intersect faces with model. Right. Now if I hid this, I should have my line on top of that area. Right. Technically I don't actually need this face anymore, because if you remember, I actually grabbed the terrain and moved it over 15 meters before. Go to all. See all. You notice that I have that face there, so I already have this face here. Alright, so I could actually move that back over to help me move forward. So if I go inside of here and go copy, Control C, and then I go to here and hide it, I should right click hide, I can go edit paste in place, and I can move that back to 15 meters to cover the area that I've actually cut. Move. Now one thing I do need to be very careful about before I do that is I actually need to ensure that I don't have any straggly lines around, because essentially to create a cubic measure we have to have a manifold is the word. It means it's watertight, and I'll quickly explain that. Rectangle, push pull, I'm not sure what size it is, but if I actually triple click that, right click and make it a group, and I look at my entity info, I notice that I have 5.02 cubic meters. If I break inside of here and I actually put a line in, a straight line, I no longer have a cubic capacity. It is no longer manifold. The same would happen if I deleted a face, so I said Control Z and deleted a face here. It's no longer manifold, right? So the key to doing what I'm about to show you is to ensure that what we're doing is a solid, right? So if I actually grab this over here and I move it to here, and I have to be accurate, 15 meters it should be, and you can see down the bottom right it is. Right, I should have an intersecting face, which I do, which essentially means I can push pull this to wherever it is I'm going to need it to be. I'm going to leave it there, and I can go erase, and I usually try and get as close to the model as I can here so I don't miss a line. And this can be slow, guys, so be warned. I need to actually delete this face but keep these lines. And you can see that I'm starting to actually, it's a little bit slower. There is another way to do it, guys, and that would be to only push pull the area that I wanted as fill only. So when I did push this up, I should have just gone line across here, intersected this, and therefore I'd have a rectangular prism that's easier to work with than what it is to work with miscellaneous geometry. Now, I don't think you guys want to see me go through and manually erase all of this information. If we went to View, Hidden Geometry, you'll see that you can get a lot more done by quickly getting rid of those lines. The benefit of disconnecting it, and you can see there's a straggler there. If I triple click it, delete, I've got rid of a whole heap in one go. Triple click, delete, delete. Okay. I do hope that I have a manifold area here. I'm going to go right click, make group, quickly check it, and I do. 10.3 cubic meters. That's how to do it, and then go back to your estimation tool, put in cubic. You can create your own materials as well, and you can also associate fluff factor, which is the air that goes with a typical type of soil. For instance, clay. 1 cubic meter of clay should be quantified as 2.5 if you're removing it from site because of the air that's in the dirt to get it out the door. So I'm going to put this in as bulk excavation. I'm going to associate it with the product, apply to selected entities, and now if I actually did a takeoff of the two items, I can go right click, take off selection only, and I got my site preparation, and you can see I've got bulk excavation 10 point, and I have import compacted fill. You can do this and you can create your own materials, and you can associate your own costs or prices to remove, and you can associate machine hire and floatage and everything like that, and be 100% accurate and certain that what you're designing is actually buildable, or if you're estimating, it's important to do that. Now guys, I quickly wanted to talk about one more thing here is we have two different sloping sides. The first one was 7.5, this is 12.5, and this is 20 degrees. Sometimes you have to draw the line and say it is not feasible to fill a site, and this is going to be a good example right here. If I select this and use my sandbox and stamp it, the height of my retaining wall and the engineering associated with creating such a retaining wall would be very prohibitive. And the same would be here. It would be difficult to access the project. It really isn't the best solution. So what will we do? I'm going to undo that, Control Z. I'm actually just going to go across to here and we'll build this house as, this part of the house as a, right, now we can go to here. I can probably be better, and then out in this section out here I would actually probably have bearers and joists or steel, lintels and so on, and essentially what I would do is I would grab this face, move, Control, bring that up to there. I would then use my flooring tools, and whether it be suspended slab or floor joist or whatever it might be, we're going to put in a floor here. We don't need a ceiling. Steel C-sections at 450 centers, say. And go submit. Right. Now I have joists in there. Now I can actually put steel across there and beams down there, because it's probably going to make a better solution for this particular site. I would probably level this surface out here so that I could park cars under it. It could be multiple different things. Let's have a quick look and see if we can stamp that again. A bit lower. Right. And then we're having a split level, as you can see. And that is a pretty steep block. Guys, just to quickly show you, I have built a fair few of these homes. There's some instances that you really need to be looking at, you know, the topography of the site and making sure that you build that project to suit the site. Obviously in this case we're on the side of a cliff. It's important that, you know, you consider what the client wants. And a rule of thumb, guys, when it comes to figuring out how to go about this, it depends on your customer's budget a little bit and what they require. Usually a first home buyer is going to buy a budget home, and a budget home should not be built on a sloping block, because essentially to split level, say a volume built home or a project home, it's outside of their typical work type, and therefore for them to customize something, usually it's cookie cutter, one after the other, most of them are the same. But to use it, to build that on a site like this, it wouldn't be feasible. You would be best off with a design build business that actually designed and constructed, because then they could come up with solutions to help you figure out the costs associated with this. You can use PlusDesignBuild to solve these problems yourself if you're that way inclined. So yeah. I guess there's one other thing I could quickly talk about is what happens when I want to buffer around the outside of here. So you'll notice when I select this face and I go up and I choose my stamp tool, that down the bottom here it says offset. Now if I went in and said I wanted this one to be a 2 meter offset, I would have to type in 2000 millimeters and then enter. Now when I actually do that and I stamp it on the project, it remembered the last thing. It's a kind of a bug, I think, inside of SketchUp, but let's just have a quick double check. If I go line and I go out on an axis, which should be red, and go to here, you'll notice that down the bottom it still says 1 meter. So to rectify that, it actually remembered what I wrote in. I'm going to go back to here and do it again. You'll notice that it's now remembered 2 meters, so I just had to do it twice. And now I have a 2 meter offset, which means that if I go and draw a line in here, oops, a line, and I put it out on my axes, I have 2 meters now, as you can see. Now, guys, you'll also notice I'm looking at the geometry behind the scenes. SketchUp doesn't actually make curved faces. It creates triangles to ensure that we can get this to all mesh, and I have a face there. So if I got inside of here and clicked in, you'll notice that I have individual faces now because I have hidden geometry turned on. To turn that off, it's View, Hidden Geometry, and now when I select it, I have the full face selected. If you ever come across this instance here where when I actually intersected or stamped the house, it actually created a whole heap of lines there for me, I'm going to use the eraser tool. And you'll notice down the bottom here, it actually says, I'll close that for a second. It actually tells me what to do. So if I push Control, it will soften and smooth. So Control and then rub it. You'll notice it's now, and if I select that face, you'll notice all the way until I smooth, it actually made that as one face. If I made a mistake when I did it, erase again, now I would have one full face. So that might help you when you're adjusting terrain. You'll also know that there are other items inside of here that enable us to do it. So I can add edges to a selected triangle, and you can just mess around with these. The help is down the bottom right hand side, so you can choose that as you please. This one here, I'm actually going through and I'm going to change particular areas, and you'll notice the radius at the moment is 10 meters. I just want to make it 1 meter. Enter. And now you notice that the radius is 1 meter, and I can change that terrain according to the radius that I select. Guys, I hope it helps you get ready to start designing homes that are specific to the block. If you have any questions, ask us below, and we'll do our best to answer them below. You can also get one-on-one training on this type of stuff, but watch the video back, watch it on a separate screen, try and follow what I did. You can see my mouse buttons are actually doing something as I do it, so sometimes you can go a little bit slower. Follow along, and guys, we want to see you producing beautiful houses on difficult slopes that are feasible. Alright guys, take it easy. Cheers.